Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of ANOKHI Uncensored, airing on Ruckus Avenue Radio on the iHeartRadio app every Tuesday at 10 a.m. PST and 1 p.m. EST, and in the evening at 6 p.m. PST and 9 p.m. EST. Additionally, you can catch us on YouTube on my channel at Girn and at ANOKHI Media's Facebook page under the ANOKHI Uncensored playlist. As usual, I'm your host, Girn, and I'm coming to you today to talk at length about the riveting new dramedy series called Get Up Aisha, premiering on CBC GEM tomorrow, April the 10th. The story highlights the journey of Aisha Rehman, a highly functioning type A Pakistani Canadian who is a university student grappling with her compulsive need to control everything. Oh my gosh, she sounds like me. As she deals with being diagnosed with depression. The story touches on the complexities of mental health and the pursuit of perfection, something I am so familiar with at the intersection of comedy and drama. Here with me today to talk about this are the show's creators, no less, Rabiya Mansoor, Marushka Jessica Almeida, and Nisha Khan. Welcome, ladies. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are too.
Oh my God. I love it. Okay, so first of all, I have to ask you the obvious question. Let's talk about how you guys, first of all, came together, and then second of all, created this interesting concept. Who would like to get us started?
I think
Yeah,
Nisha.
I can get us started because essentially, we were all kind of like up and coming budding screenwriters, trying to break into the industry. And I kind of put out a call on a Facebook group being like, hey, are there any, up and coming new writers who kind of want to form a group so that we can sort of share notes and support one another? And so these two wonderful people just happened to reply back, and there was three other people also in our group, and we sort of just met every other week in person in Toronto in this little second cup. That was like our go-to spot, and we just honestly built community. We exchanged notes, we exchanged stories. We realized we had so much in common, and even though we come from like very different backgrounds, and from there we were like, there was something called IPF, and IPF is kind of like they'll give you some funding to create a trailer, like a proof of concept. And we were like, you know what? Let's just try to go for it. Let's try to get this funding. And so through our collective, stories and our relating to one another, we thought of this concept of Get Up Aisha because it's a type A Pakistani Canadian girl who is sort of dealing with mental health issues. And so that's kind of how this whole thing came about. Obviously, we were very lucky. We got the IPF funding. We are able to make the trailer. And yeah, now, hopefully Get Up Aisha is going to come out to the world.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Honestly, especially at this particular time in history, whenever people think about entertainment and South Asian, either they go to, Bollywood or the huge kind of renaissance that's happening in the Hollywood space. So to see Canadian South Asians and women doing their thing in that space just makes me super happy. So when this came, across my desk, and ordinarily, we would, do a blog about it in the magazine. I says, no, no, no. I want these three women on my show, and we are going to talk about why this is so important. So before we kind of, dive into the concept of the show, which I'm really excited about talking to you guys about, what is kind of the underlying importance that the three of you please share your respective journeys in wanting to kind of take the charge on Canadian South Asian entertainment, film, music, art? Let's talk a little bit about that before we kind of roll in, because this is really important what you guys are doing here.
I think for a lot of folks, the reason we get into the creative arts is because we want to create content that we wish we had on screen growing up. And I'm no different. There was a lot of great Canadian TV when I was younger, but South Asian stories were few and far in between. And not only that, but I think there's sometimes a lack of diversity of storytelling, and not only from different South Asian perspectives, but also the kinds of stories. Like I often feel as South Asians, we're kind of put into a very specific box of the kinds of stories we're supposed to tell about, like, the immigrant struggle and like, am I Canadian? Am I South Asian? Oh my gosh, this is so stressful. And we're like, we can do stories beyond just that. And so coming together in the writing group and working on Get Up Aisha together, I think we're all kind of aligned in that ethos of wanting to create content that is rooted in our South Asian identity, but speaks to so much more aspects of ourselves. And so that was like a big reason why I got into the creative industries. And to me, I think just telling stories is just such a privilege, and stories are so important in terms of how we see the world, how our lives are shaped, how we interact with each other. Like it's such a beautiful thing to be able to work in this particular space.
Absolutely. And what better way to tell authentic stories than from communities who live those stories, right? And that's what makes this so fundamentally important. Marushka, share a little bit about yourself and why you felt that this, partnership with these ladies was something that really spoke to you personally.
That's a very hard question, but also a very easy one. I think if you know Nisha and Rabiya personally, they are some of the best people like ever. It's so easy to like talk to them and really do anything with them. And I think that translates in terms of like telling stories as well. I think what I always wanted to do was to just have fun with my friends, and that's literally what we spent, I think, 4 years doing. Sure, there was a lot of like pain and in the process, and trying to figure it out. But then it would have been so much harder if I just didn't have these two. They kept me sane, grounded in the country as well, because I was about to get kicked out a few times. But thanks to them, I'm here, and I couldn't be more grateful.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love, love, love everything about what you just said there. I want to, step in a little bit about the pitching process, especially for people out there that don't realize truly how hard it is for groups like ours, like ethnic groups, to be able to be seen and heard and valued, even on the pitching level. Nisha, I'm going to throw this question to you. When pitching the show, what were some of the behind the scenes things that you'd like to share with people, especially others that are looking at, also getting into this space that you wish you knew before you went into the space? Like, let's share a little bit of that with everyone.
Yeah, so I think, I find the tough part about this type of stuff is that it feels like as especially with like stories that center around South Asians or even Muslims, like we're kind of having to show like, hey, we can do it all. Like the show's like, look how we're gonna get, the best actors, we're gonna get the best scripts, we're gonna like it's gonna be this riveting thing, it's gonna look really beautiful. And it's almost like we have to put like 10 bigger steps forward than maybe other people because you're having for some reason a lot more to prove. And so I think when it came to the trailer, like our initial trailer, many years ago, we were so like, we were just like, we want it to look the best. Like we want like, whether it's costume, cinematography, like, and we get so many, well, obviously we're very proud and we get so many compliments where people were like, whoa, like you guys never did anything like this before. And this is kind of the first thing you guys put out. And I feel like we kind of didn't have the choice to fail almost. Like we were like, no, it has to be perfect, essentially. Kind of like actually, but ironically, it had to be perfect because it's more scrutinized than other, sort of genres where, it's not focused on people of color. So I think in that term, like we were definitely very aware of the fact that, we had to put our best foot forward. And that's kind of the difficulty with creators now who are just like getting in there, trying to do the same thing. It is more heavily scrutinized. So we were aware of that. And we definitely, at the end of the day, I mean, we are three people who are a bit more perfectionist, all the three of us ourselves. So we were like, every little aspect, we were like, we want it like this, we want it like this, we want it like this. And we were very, very serious about making sure we had that creative control.
And I love the fact that, we're, as a community, as women, from our community, we are, in a position today where we have the courage and the strength and the resilience and the community, like the three of you, to be able to say, no, I'm not going to compromise this story. It's not going to be the story that they want. It's going to be the story that we need, right? And I feel that that's what's really speaking loudly to me. I want to talk about the character of Aisha, and I laugh inside because she reminds me so much of myself, and she's someone that is so relatable to so many of us from our community, especially in our upbringing, right? Where there just isn't this opportunity to say to ourselves that we can fail, right? It's just the way that we're brought up, in the culture. And the fact that you've kind of really beautifully encapsulated that, but then had her have this challenge that she has to face, which we all have to face some form of challenge. I thought that this was just an incredible way to tell the story. But one thing I wanted to share with you guys is that, from my own perspective, being her, you guys being her on some perspective, everyone out there that is female will at some point, resonate with her. And I feel that anyone from any type of community that is very stringent is going to be able to really, hear this story loud and clear. And I feel that what a lot of people do is that they concentrate so much on problem solving, solutioning, in the way that we've been taught to do that from a kind of a mental IQ perspective, which is what Aisha's doing, right? Until she learns otherwise. But it's a beautiful kind of, holistic combination of the mental IQ and the emotional IQ, and the notion of just not being so hard on yourself that allows us to learn who we are, essentially speaking. I'd love to know all of your guys' thoughts on that, because that's kind of the perspective that I'm looking at this from. Please share.
I think you encapsulated it so wonderfully, because for me, a big part of Aisha's personality is not that her mom, for example, is like putting all this pressure on her, but it's that she's internalized all the pressure that's coming from her community, broader society, and what she just thinks she needs to do in order to just survive and even maybe get a little bit ahead in this world. And I think that that's just like just so relatable, because very similar to what Nisha was saying earlier, it's that pressure of like, this has to be perfect, because if this fails, then 10 people behind me, like, they're not going to get an opportunity. And I think that's similar to the same struggle that Aisha's going through. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. Either of you guys want to share your perspectives there as well? Nisha, Marushka, anything you want to add to kind of just how we are so hard on ourselves, and perhaps if we were to step back and be a little kinder to ourselves, right? And like, what are your thoughts around that? Because I think that the point that you made there, Rabia, where oftentimes people looking from the outside will look at our culture and feel that it's always the parents that are putting the pressure on us, but it isn't always the parents, right? We put greater pressure on ourselves than our parents do. In my personal experience, you guys are nodding, so I know that you guys agree with me as well. Please share a little bit around that if you can, because then let's dive into the story a little bit.
Yeah, I also really resonate with that part of Aisha, of wanting to essentially you're putting that pressure on ourselves to be perfect. And I think it also comes with this idea that, what she's doing, or everything that she's going to accomplish, it's personalized. So, if she fails, it's because she's a failure. If she does well, it's because she's amazing. And so everything she's internalizing, because she doesn't have that, or she didn't learn yet that emotional regulation. And I think as we're sort of going through life and we're getting the pressure from different places, we kind of see, it's like, is it pressure from other places, or are we kind of putting this on ourselves and making our lives significantly harder than it needs to be? And even if we do get those comments, because come on, like, I just feel like in the community, like, you can have a family that's very loving and supportive, and then like the second you step out, you can like go to a wedding and you'll get like those comments of like, what are you doing in school? Oh, I heard you dropped out. Or, oh, I heard you have, a relationship and it didn't work out. I just feel like it, instead of, letting it brush it off, like, you kind of internalize it, and then it kind of sits on you, and then you start, you know, going through that process. And what I hope that when people sort of see the journey of Aisha is that she's like this in the beginning, and you know, we see those traits in her, but then she's able to slowly kind of let go. And that's kind of what I hope everyone else who's also watching is like, yeah, maybe I am very hard on myself and it's not worth it. It's not a way to live.
How did you guys pick the actor for this role? Like, share that, because fundamentally you guys can be doing everything right, but that key person, just, you know, it brings it all together or not, right?
Casting for Aisha was, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of difficult because we wanted to stay authentic to the character and cast someone who is Pakistani, who is Muslim, who can kind of draw from their own personal experiences like into the role. And so when we were originally casting for the trailer, we cast back in 2020, we cast such a wide net, and we were like trying to find you know, maybe there's some people who are up and coming, but you know, because of how personal the story is, they might be the right fit. And we're looking and looking. And then we come across a self-tape from Sana Assad, and she just absolutely nailed it. And I think what also made the role of Aisha so hard to cast is we needed someone who was strong both comedically and dramatically. And I think some actors just lean one way or the other, and that's totally fine. But that on top of needing someone who's like Pakistani and Muslim and has those experiences, like we were like, oh gosh, like how are we gonna find this person? But luckily, I think Sana actually self-submitted for the role, and then we're like, oh wow, like this is our Aisha. So we're just so lucky to have found her. But I think that's one of the great things about Canada is that there's so much great talent that comes out of this country, especially South Asian talent. And you know, Sana Saad is just the next one in a long line of amazing talent.
Absolutely. You know, let's roll into the fact that you guys chose the dramedy genre to tell the story. It's you know, it's a great way to be able to make mental health discussions palatable, right? So, you know, I feel that that's probably the reason why you chose to do this. But in addition to that, our lives as South Asian women, you know, sits at the intersection of comedy and drama, right? Like it just does. Share a little bit about that. Like, you know, you chose this specifically for a reason. Who would like to share why?
I can do that. I think it's exactly what you just said, because life, I think, is a balance of like both, right? And I think like showcasing just the drama side of it would feel inauthentic, and just making light of it is not true at all, right? And I think when we were talking about the tone of the show, we took a lot of reference from like other shows that are out there that sort of talk about the space. And some of my favorite shows, which are BoJack Horseman and Fleabag, really deal with these intricate issues, but do it with such a comedic lens. But at the same time, they give the gravitas where it's needed, right? So the comedy makes the drama stronger. The drama makes the comedy feel even better. And I think that's something that we were really gunning for, and I hope we did it.
You know, actually doing justice to anything to do with, you know, a topic as complex as mental health, something that people still see as a disease, which it's not. It's still, you know, in society in general, even though social media has really helped to kind of make it a little bit more palatable for people, it's times 10 when it comes to the South Asian community, just because of all of the expectations that have been handed down to us in our DNA. Why did you guys choose to marry the mental health aspect in the parlaying of this kind of A-type personality? I know that this was very deliberate. Share that a little bit with us.
I think that when we were talking about mental health in general and kind of like how we see it on screen, it feels like it's very much like someone who, you know, is in bed crying all day, or like, you know, they are definitely crippled by it, which is a reality. And what was interesting was we were all like, but we don't really see the people who are, you know, they have a happy face on, everything's going well, you know, seemingly things are perfect, but they're definitely suffering. And I feel like those people actually get overlooked so significantly. And even from our own experiences dealing with mental health struggles, it's like again, because of the also cultural aspect of putting a brave face on. And, you know, you can't imagine if you have you're hosting or something and you have people over, but you're completely unhappy, something went wrong. You cannot show it. You cannot show that emotion. You just feel like you have to put on a front. And we were like, that's so interesting, because those people, that would be really interesting to watch on screen, and how that is actually like the worst way to possibly deal with mental health struggles.
Right.
So Aisha kind of encapsulates that, where, you know, she is literally suffering deeply. You know, we see her that she does have a suicide attempt. And we see that right in the first episode. And so for someone who has this kind of, you know, is dealing with these struggles, to how she's kind of putting on this front that everything is great, it's like, that is so interesting that so many people are going through, and that hopefully they can relate to and realize that, oh, wow, like, you know, someone might look like they have it all, but there's so much behind what someone is going through. And that if we are a bit more compassionate and understanding, and that, you know, depression doesn't look like someone just saying, hey, like, I'm not happy. I wish that's what it looked like, you know, but the reality is it's people who, by the time they end up, you know, you realizing something's wrong, it's like far too late and they're really far gone. And so I think that was kind of what something that we kind of gravitated towards, which was showcasing this type of mental health.
Absolutely. And when you look, you know, this is where, you know, the good face of social media is really helpful for us. When you look at, you know, a lot of, you know, figures, role models, if, you know, for want of a better word, that, you know, are speaking up about this. You look at Lily Singh, who's spoken about mental health challenges. You look at Deepika in Bollywood talking about these challenges as well. And, you know, it's, you know, in full transparency, when I heard them talking about this, I thought to my, you know, I felt kind of like this, my heart was jumping out of my chest, because I thought, oh my God, are they really admitting to this? Like, these people who like seem untouchable, seem like they're sitting on top of the world. Like, if they have the courage and the guts to speak about, you know, how they face the world, you know, how hard it is sometimes for them to face the world for whatever the reasons may be, then it's okay for the rest of us, you know? And I feel that this is what I'm feeling with this story about Aisha, because Aisha is A-type. She is brilliant, right? And she is all the things. She's all the check marks. She has all the check marks, right? But she's not fundamentally happy in a certain aspect. Like, you know, discussing that is so important, because it's like in our community, you guys know this, right? If you have all the things, you should be happy. But it's usually the people who have all the things are the ones that are unhappy, because they feel like they don't have permission to talk about not being happy, if you know what I'm saying. So with that in mind, I want to ask all three of you, please, all three of you, share your perspective. Any special message you'd like to share with everyone that's tuning in about mental health and normalizing discussions around it in homes, schools, and communities? What would you say to them from your own perspective? Please, all of you.
The biggest message that I have is that you are not alone, that, you know, the struggles you're going through and the the pain that you may feel, like, it probably feels so all encompassing, but there are others who have walked that path and who have been able to come out on the other side. Ultimately, I just want people to leave with like a message of hope that, you know, there is something on the other side, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that we don't have to suffer in silence, that these are conversations we can have in the community together.
Absolutely. Marushka, what are your thoughts?
I think Rabiya said it all. I think it's exactly that. Like, I recently lost someone to suicide, so I think it's it's just such a pervasive issue, I think, that is in our communities. And the first thing after it happened was people wanting to cover it up and hide it and like sort of make all these excuses for why it's happening. But oh, he was doing so well. How could it have happened? And I think what I want people to take away from the show is that it doesn't look the same for everyone, right? So you need to talk about it. You need to talk about it all the time. right? And when you talk about it, every generation, it's not just our generation, it's the generations above, it's the generations after. Like, it's a collective healing discussion that needs to take place. So if you watch the show, talk to your parents, ask them how they're doing, seriously ask them how they're doing. And maybe somewhere along the way, I know it's hard, it's awkward to do that, but along the way you'll get somewhere real. And I think that's what I hope.
Me too. I hope the exact same thing of Marushka. How about you, Nisha?
Well, yeah, I echo both sentiments very strongly, and I hope when people watch the show, that's also what they, take from it. And I guess something that I would also add that I do hope that kind of stirs some conversation around in the family, household, which is that I think a lot of times our parents, they did not get the resources at all to be able to deal with their emotions, their, turmoils, and the tough things that they had to go through. And so then when it's like, as we're growing up and we are starting to realize that we don't have those tools either, like we don't have to kind of do that pattern. We can break that pattern. And so I think that it's very, very, very important that we actually do allow ourselves, even if people around you are saying, just, push it under the rug. It's not a big deal. This is that. That's not the way to go. Like it is very important that you reach out. It is very important that, maybe you go to therapy. I just recently actually started therapy and I'm like such a huge proponent of it. I'm like, please, like everyone should have a therapist. Like it's amazing. And although it might sound silly, maybe to people who are older than me who might not at all understand the concept of paying someone to listen to you, I'm like, if it's going to help with your mental health, it is the most important because your mental health is the most important, and we end up deprioritizing that. So I hope that when people watch this, they're like, oh, everything falls apart if your mental health is falling apart. So that is something that I absolutely need to prioritize.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with all three of you. Bravo. What a really important way to tell such an engaging and interesting story. I mean, we're having a heavy discussion right now, but it is full of laughs. There's an incredible, cast of other characters that just really pull the story together and remind us of what it's like to live in family, be out there in the world. It's just very, very interesting and comedic to watch how she tries to problem solve, her challenges. What is the main takeaway of the series for each of you personally that you hope people will get? Of course, is the mental health aspect. We need to normalize it. We need to accept each other's journeys and our stories and our perspectives and our value systems, right? That's fundamentally, absolutely, a big part of what I'm feeling the story is going to help people really, dive deeper into and hopefully have those conversations with people that they trust and that they want. And that's the other part of it for me that's coming to me is that, I've always wanted my parents to get me. But then what I, learned as life went on and, being a mother of a 26-year-old son today is that it also goes the other way. We have different perspectives that we come from. We have a different toolbox from which we, dive in to be able to see the world from, and I feel that this story is going to help people maybe open that door a little bit wider than it already is. But I want you guys to share what's the main takeaway for each of you guys where this story is concerned. Can I throw it to you again, Rabiya, first?
For sure. Um, in addition to the mental health aspects, I'd say one of the main takeaways that I'd love viewers to walk away with is that failure is a normal part of life. There's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be setbacks, but that struggle is just a part of normal daily living. And yeah, and it's just what makes life the beautiful, messy thing that it is.
Absolutely. I love that. Marushka, what would you say?
For me, actually, one one of my favorite parts of the show, I think, is the line we ride between science and religion. And I feel like sometimes it is presented as a very binary issue, that either you're religious and then you disregard everything else, or either you're super scientific and you disregard everything else, which I feel is untrue to like how a lot of us grow up. And I think that's the beautiful part of the show, is that we don't discount either. We give them its weight, and that it's important, and that it affects how we see things and how we see life. And that's for me one of the most beautiful parts about the show.
And would you like to close us off, Nisha? What would you like everybody to take away from this? Perhaps some of what we've already talked about, perhaps a spoiler alert that you can share.
Oh no, spoilers. I something I think that what I hope people do take away from it, because there's honestly so many different aspects of the show that are like wonderful that both Rabiya and Marushka were able to touch on. I think something that's, at least for me, special watching it is the dynamics within the family. So Aisha's relationship with her mother, I think it's the strongest relationship that we end up seeing play out, and sort of like the ups and downs of it. And that it's hopefully it can, spark conversation in a household where people are like, okay, yes, just like you were sharing, Raj, of like, wanting to be able to have your parents understand you. This is something that you will definitely see in the show. Like Aisha's wanting to be understood, wanting to be seen, not just by her mother, but kind of her absentee father. And how that plays out, and how that also plays out in a child who, is having this perfectionist mindset, because it comes from this idea that if I'm good enough, people will stay. If I'm good enough, people will like me. If I'm good enough, I will have it all, essentially. And how dangerous that mentality is, obviously. And we do show that. So I do hope that when people watch the show, they can see that dynamic and say, okay, wow, that kind of looks like something that I've been dealing with. And this is how Aisha deals with it. And we see her deal with it wrong, but we also see her kind of deal with it in a good way. And so, yeah, I hope that sparks conversation, good or bad, whatever it is, just get people talking, get people thinking and feeling something.
Absolutely. And what I feel here, which is, even more magical, is this is the telling of a very universal story. It doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what your experiences have been, doesn't matter what you're surrounded by. There is some aspect of this story that will touch you. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. And it'll be something that you're going to want to talk about. The show is airing, guys, on CBC GEM tomorrow, April the 10th. Guys, what time should we tell people to tune in? I recommend everyone watching the first episode and every episode after that with their families in the evening, when they come back from school, when they come back from work, and whatever the case may be. And, it's really interesting because we often feel like, past generations wouldn't be open to having these discussions. But if you go and have a discussion with your nanny, your nana, any of your kind of grandparent generations, you'll be shocked at how receptive they would be, that, they want to talk about this. They want to hear about this, right? So don't shut the door on anyone based on age or based on the experience they've had, or because they may have come from like a small village back home. You'll be surprised and shocked at how much they actually have seen or wish that they had the opportunities for. Is there a social media page or somewhere you want people to kind of come and hang out with you guys and tell everyone they know to come and hang out?
Yeah, and we are both on Instagram, and we're on TikTok. So we're on Instagram, we're at Get Up Aisha, and TikTok, same name. We definitely are posting content, behind the scenes stuff, also sharing some mental health resources if people are interested in that. So that's definitely a place that you can find us.
I love that. And, I have to kind of close off by saying, other than the fact that I cannot wait to watch this and share this with everyone that I know, I really, really, I hope that this is going to open the door for more opportunities to see this kind of programming across all platforms. You know, we need to, you know, share these stories more. It's what helps us be able to be more fair and equitable with each other as humans. And I really hope that, you know, this is going to help open that door. I'm so proud of you guys that you were able to have the courage and the conviction and to get through all of the naysayers to get to this point where this show, which is fundamentally needed, not just by our community, but by Canadians in general, but by anyone that may be able to stream it outside of Canada, if that is an opportunity as well, or if it will become an opportunity later. I really encourage everyone to go out and support this. And even if you are watching, listening, and reading this somewhere else in the world, if you know someone in Canada, tell them to watch it. I really, really encourage that. And finally, what kind of support do you guys feel we need to push harder on from our community to get more support, to tell real, authentic stories about who we are, what we face, and how we should lean into supporting each other? Any of you guys, please share that nugget of wisdom before we close off.
That's a hard one, but I will say that I already see it happening. I think like when you see the Oscar South Asian parties, when you see the salon media, like people actually actively trying to get stories out there, trying to find like uplift up like new and upcoming South Asian creators. And I think that it's already happening. It's already in the zeitgeist. The way we support is watching, sharing, telling the people around us to tune in and doing it consistently. I think that's the best way.
Absolutely. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you guys want to share, or any kind of closing remarks that you want to leave everyone with before we close off, ladies?
No, I think you were wonderful. What wonderful questions.
Thank you so much, my darlings. I really, really wish you the best. I really do. Please come back on, right? Next time you're launching something, or if you just want to get support on a project that you're trying to launch, come back and say hello, and let's just get it out there in the beautiful world out there, because I truly believe that there is more goodness in this world than the dark that media likes to talk about. And that's why we're here. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing these incredible insights about such an exciting show. Get Up, Aisha, premiering on CBC GEM tomorrow, guys, April the 10th. Watch it with every single person in your family, and watch it in the evening so you guys can kind of have some great discussions around it. Folks, I really encourage you to support this show and share it with everyone you know, because the more we normalize who we are, the more our community will benefit and grow in alignment. And we all deserve that, right? Equity is everything. Equity is empowerment. I'll see you all next time on the ANOKHI Uncensored podcast. Until then, stay connected with us everywhere at ANOKHI Lifestyle. And don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter at anokhilife.com for the exclusives, the giveaways, content. If you guys are the types of people that just need to get it once a week, like a dump through our newsletter that we send out to all of you guys at the end of the week, sharing everything that we've been talking about during the week, and also to be the first to be notified on what's new in the world of ANOKHI. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. I'll see you next time.